Welcome to the Jungle Brothers podcast. I'm your host, Joey, and today, Paulie and I are joined by our old mate, Clint Hill. Clint has a master's in strength and conditioning, and he's one of the most qualified S&C coaches and personal trainers in the country. He's been on the podcast a couple of times in the past, and it was great to catch up with him. We had a pretty general chat around coaching, the fitness industry, and perhaps what life has been like in our industry since COVID. Really cool insights. Hope you enjoy the chat. And I will see you guys on the inside. Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to let you know about our upcoming Coaches Intensive. This 2-day workshop is for anyone who wants to become world-class as a fitness professional. In the course, you'll learn the key skill sets needed to excel in fitness, as well as how to build a successful fitness business. Over the 2 days, we explore topics such as leadership, programming, sales, marketing, public speaking, and more. There are no prerequisites to enroll in the workshop, so whether you're a gym owner, a coach, or simply somebody who's considering a transition into fitness at some point, this course is for you. The next Coaches Intensive is on June 18 and 19, right here at Jungle Brothers Strength and Movement in Botany, Sydney. To enroll, go to junglealliance.com/courses and select the June event. As a listener of the show, you also get a sweet discount when you use the code JB Podcast at checkout. I've also popped a link to the event right here in the show notes. I look forward to working with you in our next Coaches Intensive. Now, back to the episode.
And I was like, I need to ring Clint to ask him about S&C courses.
Very good.
Courses.
Very good.
It's like, I think I'd like to do one.
Well,
What's involved?
I just had the best chat with Dom about that, actually. So, basically, what we're going to do is we're now going to link the level 1 S&C back through PTA Academy.
Right.
Which means they get a minor kickback, but it means they also kind of it's a progression. So it's like, okay, you're sitting here, you've done your Cert 3, Cert 4. What do you want next? You can go this way, you can go this way, you can go this way.
So the S&C would be like a specialisation that you could take once you had that base of education.
Yes. So that way, I guess, it keeps those people within the same system, right? So the big dog would obviously, Cert 3, Cert 4, done a couple of other courses, done this, done that, but would lead back through PTA Academy as part of their S&C stream, which would still give you the same ASCA level 1 strength conditioning, but they would end up with it sort of being a PTA Academy group.
Right.
Right? There would still be other people allowed to do it, but what that would then also do is create more leads, more contact, and also keeping that same experience running. So what that would then mean is, right, so Big Dog would do the level 1, and then the next lead-in would be the Alico level 1 Olympic lifting, the Alico level 1 powerlifting, the Alico level 1 squat, dead, pull, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, is the way that it tends to go for most coaches, you do your qualifications like Cert 3 and 4, say through PTA or any other academy, but then you kind of like floating around for a while, and it's only once you decide, you know what, I want to do something more.
Well, and this is probably the big thing, chatting with Dom Dos Remedios and Mel Dos Remedios.
Killer surname, by the way.
I know, they're unreal, right? Who I've known.
I know as a PTA.
Yeah. That's Dom. Right.
Yeah. So I've now... Mel was the first person to employ me as a personal training manager when I finished playing rugby and came back into finished playing rugby, finished S&C the first time round, so to speak, and then went back into the commercial fitness market and went into Fitness First. So Mel put me in at Sylvania Fitness First.
Oh.
So that was, to my knowledge, maybe 2005, 2006, maybe. No, it couldn't have been. 2008.
So that was your official start in fitness?
Well, no, I'd already been there a few times as a PT and things like that, but I was doing it while I was playing rugby, while I was studying, while I was whatever, right?
Right.
That was the first full-time management style role as a personal training manager.
Yeah.
Now, the reason that I was mentioning them is what we have now realised and what they have discovered, and this is the difference between, you know, and we talk about commercial gyms or you know, your in-house studio style gyms that have got a real different philosophy, like here and places like that. But those big box commercial facilities have now lost a lot of that education side of things, because what's occurred is, in the old days, you used to have a PT manager in every single one of those gyms. So the problem that has occurred now is that, let's say, Anytime Fitness, for example, and this was Dom's example to me earlier, Anytime Fitness have now, if the gym has just opened or they're a small facility, they don't have that PT management. So those guys walk in there and don't have someone to go, hey, how do I get a lead? Hey, how do I do this? Hey, how do I market my business? Right? So that's all missing from that side. So they're looking to outsource that through companies like PTA.
Is that the case? Was that an adaptation because of COVID? Is that why those big gyms don't have PT managers and stuff?
Look, I think what it is realistically is there's just so much more variety now, you know. And Joey, you and I have talked about this a lot over the years, that there is no one size fits all anymore. There is no you're right, you're wrong. There is no you can't do this, right? If you want to do gymnastics on a Monday, you know, bench press, you know, bodybuilding on a Tuesday, you know, go for a 15K run on a Wednesday, well, you beauty, off you go. But there's a way to still make that work with an underpinning philosophy. But the big part of that's occurred is they're moving into those commercial gym facilities.
Right.
It's no longer just in facilities like here or like a CrossFit gym or whatever. It's moving to mainstream fitness.
Yeah, okay. Paulie, what drew you? You were saying you want to do an S&C course.
Yeah.
What got you fired up for that?
I've always wanted to do one. I guess when I first started, obviously I opened the gym with you guys, and I hadn't trained to be a PT or a coach yet. And when I did, I was like, you know, where am I going to put where are my talents, or where's my interests, and how am I going to contribute? What style of training? To me, with the ball sports background and not a lot of formal experience, I was like, well, it's going to be sport specific. I'm going to be doing, you know, athletes.
Yep.
Quickly come to realize that that's not who we serve mainly. The general population don't need to be trained like an athlete. And I realized the JBWA, it's like, teach them how to fucking move properly first. So it was like strength and mobility training and fundamentals done well and consistently. Fast forward 5 years, it's always been in the background. Like, I really would love to learn how to coach someone to a high level of performance for ball sports and fighting, because that's what I fucking love. I've been sick for like 10 days or more and in bed, and I was rolling around on YouTube just catching up on all the footy. I love it. I get inspired by watching the Panthers, going back, watching all soccer vids, and I love those young guys, and I love how athletic they are. And I'm like, you know, I know a lot of the theories and the science, but I've never studied it and then applied that to someone who's like, hey, Paulie, show me, I want you to take me to this level. And, you know, I'd just like to get a course behind me to do that and then go, bang, I'm going to apply this to people. And I just think it's exciting, man. And I love, because it's a sports thing, I'm all fucking biomechanics. In my head, I love breaking down the movements, the approaches for whatever it is, the scoring or the defending. I love that shit. And then the team aspect. So I suck up a lot of that shit on YouTube and stuff. I'm like, well, I should probably go and learn from someone who's done it before. And I was like, I got to call Clint and ask him about courses.
Yeah, cool.
And you know, because you've had a lot of experience in that area, and I just don't really know how it works, you know?
And look, I think the big thing is, right, like, you know, and I've been having a lot of conversations recently with PTs coming in about what what is strength and conditioning and what encompasses the area. Because, there was a really interesting piece just recently. The Australian strength coach, Sebastian Oreb, put out a piece saying, that, periodization is one thing, but you don't have to do one size fits all. You don't have to do... Now, the problem with a broad statement like that is that, sure, you don't.
Was he saying you don't have to periodize?
Well, no. He's saying that there should be some element of periodization, most definitely. But he's saying that there's 16 different methods within that periodization model. You're going to write it one way, I'm going to write it another way, Paulie's going to write it another way, he's going to write it another way, right? So there's no right or wrong. And that part I totally 100% agree with. The other issue is you have to start at a base level. So he can say that. I can say that. Paulie shouldn't be saying that, right? So the point I'm trying to make here is sweeping statement on the above level, because that's where he's at. He's training
elite
guys
athletes.
who are elite athletes. If you are training a 16-year-old kid who is coming through, you need to make them move better, make them actually have a focus point, because they're a 16-year-old kid, 17, 18, whatever. Like, I'm not saying, let's say year one long-term athletic development rather than 16, 17, 18, right? So that year one in the gym person who is a performance-based athlete still needs the strict periodization models. Now, if they're playing 3 different sports, that gets pretty tough, right? Because you're going to try and cross over 3 different periodization models. But it's really easy for someone at a super high level to make a sweeping statement like that makes sense at his level, 100%. But it actually then opens up a shitty little doorway for little Joe Blogs that's done his level 1 strength and conditioning and says, but Sebastian Oreb, who is, a god in the world of powerlifting, said this. Well, sure. I mean, if I was going to talk powerlifting, I'd go to someone like Sebastian or other people in that area. But I'm not going to Sebastian to talk about, things like how to train someone for a rugby union tournament or a rugby league tournament or a fighting sport, right? But the problem is, once seen as an authority, you fall into that category.
Yeah.
You make those statements, and he knows that stands true to him. But you've still got to have the underpinning science behind that. And I'm unsure what qualifications he's done formally. I'm very sure he's done plenty. And I've seen, a lot of his education models, and they're fantastic. But the other part of it is, like we're talking about here with Paulie, like you have to start at that base level because they're the foundational movement pieces. Like you guys talk about with the pillars here, it's understanding what hits the bottom rungs, the low-hanging fruit, the things that are going to carry over into daily life, long-term longevity, and long-term athleticism. Yeah,
there's something we say in our coaches intensive in the programming module that I think is really relevant to that, which is because we do a lot of unconventional shit here at Jungle Brothers, right? It's movement, right?
Yeah.
I
don't know whether I'd actually think it's unconventional anymore, and I'm going to challenge you on that a little bit later. But
that's fair. But like stuff that you don't see in a lot of other gyms.
Yes.
But one of the things we say in that course is when teaching programming to up and coming coaches is, you have to know the fundamental laws of strength conditioning.
Yes.
And then you are allowed to veer off the track at times,
yes.
But you have to know you're off track.
Yes.
And that's the thing. It's like you have to understand the conventions and the basics of this shit before you've earned the right to play around with more fringy stuff.
Hell yeah. Actually, before I keep going on that, mate, when is that next coaches intensive?
That's coming up.
I've got a couple of people that are really interested.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's coming up 18th, 19th of June. So what are we now? Early June?
Yep, the 3rd.
The 3rd. So by the time this will be out on Monday. So yeah, for people hearing this, it's like a little under 2 weeks away.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now, what I was going to say there, sorry to little diversion there, but one of the key things there for me is, okay, and this is a deflowering, the onion, if you will, peeling the layers back here, but when I was a younger coach, there was definitely an element of I might have known I was off course, but I was too afraid to tell people that I was off course. So I just had to keep going and hope it was going to come back on to the track, right? Because you do something and you've started it and you're like, fuck, I'm here. How do I, I know it's going wrong and I know that I need to change this, but I'm in the middle of a 4-week program and shit, I can't tell that athlete I've fucked this up, right? We all fuck up, man. I make consistent fuck ups on a minute by minute basis. And if I'm not pushing the boundaries, right? So that's where I say to you, here, your unconventional, quote unquote, movements. Well, are they really unconventional, or are we just stuck in a bullshit methodology that says that these are the conventional movements, squat, deadlift, and a bit of bench press in there? So my thought process, and as I've gotten older, is, well, how do I tie that into there? How do I make that work? Hang on, this person likes this. We were talking off air about Haley, one of your members here, and now going into your coaches, and also someone that's done the coaches intensive program, right?
Yep.
So interesting. I've been training Haley for, I guess it's probably close to 2 years now, and she's gone from doing Lyra and things like that to now looking at bodybuilding. And so what's conventional, what's not conventional,
circus performer to
bodybuilder,
fitness model,
right? Whatever it is, right? Like you can't, if it suits that particular activity, then we're all good. And it's okay to also work out a way to fit in. Let's continue on the Haley path. It's also okay to work out how to fit in the rings, the Lyra, those kind of things, whatever it is, into that bodybuilding program. Sure, it might mean that it takes an extra 3 months to achieve those goals because you've taken a little bit away from that. But who said that was right or wrong either? You've just got to be realistic, open and honest about how that works so you can get the result you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think we've always had a pretty open sort of view about what's conventional and whatnot. And I think that given how, what our gym was born from, we were always sort of fighting against the mainstream in a way.
Yeah.
And to your point, say about we all fuck up. This is something. Tell me what you think about this, because I always find this an interesting thought process relevant to programming.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm familiar with say I did my level 1 weightlifting certification many years ago, Australian weightlifting,
100%.
It was a bullshit weekend, it was a very low level certification, but they give you the Russian model of periodization, you put your percentages in, you put your numbers in, it tells you this is what you're lifting for the next 16 weeks. So I'm familiar with that extremely linear
periodization,
right?
program.
That is just like black and white.
Correct.
And I see the benefit of it. But then, in the trenches here in the gym, it's you spend hours and hours, days sometimes laboring over putting together the perfect program. And then someone gets sick and they take a week and a half off.
Assholes.
Right?
Why do you fuck with my life?
Yeah. And you're like, all right, so we got the perfect program.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, most subjects ain't perfect. Yeah. No one is. So so then that leads me back around to many times thinking, the actual approach is often not that important.
Yes.
It's more just doing the thing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's hey, are we doing push-ups or bench press, or are we it doesn't really matter. Let's just do something.
Look, the other part of
that's being very flippant, by the way.
Look, flippant, yeah, but you know what the best part about that is? I think, it tones it down to be not comical, but truthfully understandable. It tones it down to a level, and I'm not trying to say into layman's terms or anything like that, but what I mean by it is, what I think about when it comes to that is, okay, if I don't have, and I think, flipping that a little bit different way that I was going to actually answer that is, let's look at what happened during lockdown, right? All of these people were in their houses, they might have had a kettlebell, an old bench press, and that might have been it, right? And next thing you know, people are actually coming out of lockdown in better nick than they went in. Oh, that's right, because you were consistent rather than whatever, right? Because the other part of this is there's so much of our lives that get caught up in this shit. You know, you've got a kid, you've got family, you know, like I get a phone call and get told I have to be in Adelaide to teach a course, right? Like, you know, that totally stuffs my week up, right? But in essence, that's the beauty of the fitness industry, right? You can do it any fucking way you want. You know, and this is, I mean, I had a dig at you when we had breakfast the other morning.
Did you?
Remember I said no Globo gym chat?
Oh, yeah.
Right, because I've got a real issue with that term, right? Because if that's the start of someone's journey, don't pick on it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with Fitness First. There's nothing wrong with Anytime Fitness. There's nothing wrong with your $4.50 a week gym
About boot
membership.
camps. There's something wrong with boot camps now.
Yeah, you know what?
Fuck those guys.
Look, mate, I've got a whole bunch of fuck those guys, but it's probably an individual human that I'm talking about in that realm. But the genuine truth of this is, you know, it's fitness. Do it your way.
Yeah.
Right? You know, my job is do no harm. My job is make better people, better humans, and better athletes, hopefully, right? You know, and okay, maybe I've been pretty lucky because I've got to work with, you know, some finer tuned athletes at the top end of the spectrum. But realistically, I don't treat those guys any differently to what I treat my little under 16s West Harbour boys that, you know, are coming to the gym for the first time and thinking to themselves, mate, I just want bigger guns to impress that boy or girl at the local high school, you know. So when it comes down to it, man, like just drop some of the bullshit and bravado and just realise that you can do it any way you want now.
There was a good line from Logan Gelbrick, who was on the podcast, I don't know, 10 episodes ago. Classic dude, great thinker.
Yeah, I remember him, yeah. From Deus, yeah?
Yeah, out in California. And I can't remember how he put it, but, you know, something that he says to, like, coaches, he's like, congratulations on making this industry the laughingstock of our society. Like, he's like, we all hang shit on it. But then we all go and portray it. He's like,
yeah,
like, and the way he put it was very poignant. It was just like we all talk about how shit fitness is, but it's the industry we're in. So it's like, we should really elevate the way we present it.
And that's why I'm saying to you that I no longer use the term Globo Gym and whatnot, because in my perspective, if you do that, you're belittling people, you're belittling the part of the industry that counts to us, right? And because you train at an Anytime Fitness doesn't make you a shit human. And some of the best people I know, you know, the guy sitting across from me, obviously, you know, without you know, places that are chain gyms, we would not have met.
Little backstory there, that Anytime Fitness Surrey Hills was Big Joey's first PT gig, where Clint was my boss.
That's right.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Was it through Chad and T?
Hey, you know Chad's dead, right?
I do.
Yeah, holy shit.
I do, and we had him on the show.
Yes, I do know
in
that.
an incredibly awkward episode, but
do you remember what episode?
It was probably like back in episode 50 or something. Like, we're talking, you know, years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, T got him on, and it was a really awkward episode. I actually left the episode because we're all four of it, like, all team myself, and then I was like, I don't need to be here.
Really?
And it was like, he just wasn't. It was really interesting. He didn't want to kind of answer any of the questions. He wanted to go on a different track.
Yeah, look, the
T asked him about his cancer on the show.
Did he? Right.
Yeah, and if he thought that his steroid use had contributed to it.
Interesting. So, backstory there. So, I trained Chad. I was running a level 1 Australian Strength and Conditioning Association course for Fitness First at Bondi Platinum back in, let's say, 2010. Might have been 2011, 2012, but whatever, somewhere in that vicinity, right? And Chad had to do, so back in those days, obviously, you know, working in a commercial facility, you have to have a certain number of CEC points a year to continue qualification, yada, yada, yada. So, big dog sitting at the back of the room, and this is Chad was, you know, bodybuilder, huge, very stocky human, right? Now, the interesting part was that he, like, sat in the back of the room, arms crossed, didn't want a bar of the course, did not want a bar of it, but it was the only thing on that he was semi-interested in, thought he might have got something out of. Anyway, I sat there and I'm totally myself when I teach, fuck this, fuck that, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh, hang on a sec, I might actually be able to listen to this guy, And we get to the end of day 2 and all he's done during the course is dig at me. Like anything I've said, he's gone, nah, what about this? Nah, what about this? Nah, what about that? Anyway, he gets to the end of the course and he says, man, that was the best course I've ever done. And I sat there and I'm like, damn, I was ready to knock you the fuck out. I was ready to literally get up and headbutt you, I couldn't have got my head down that far. The poor little motherfucker was that short. But anyway, look, so that started a very long-term friendship, and totally different to me, totally different, but I tried to change his world a bit, and even the last time we chatted before he passed, there was big chats around, the exercises that I introduced to him changed the way he thought, they changed the way he programmed, they changed the way he coached, and also in somewhat, the way he spoke to people, because he was a pretty dominant little garden gnome, so he definitely, So there you go.
How about that? Yeah, I mean, when I came to know you, you guys were very close, and I remember sitting in on a chat about you would consult him on his programming, and he obviously had a lot of respect for you, and bit of a mentorship kind of role there.
Yeah, and I always allowed him to explain why he thought that, and allow, and I do this with everyone that I mentor, because I think the best way to learn is by making mistakes, right? So, and I always say it's not right. It's not right or wrong if you can give me a why. So if you say, I'm putting bench press and leg press together as a superset, and you can give me your reason why for that individual person, by all means, away you go. But normally would I do, contrast method where I'm doing bench press and some back work? Yeah, sure, that would probably be the norm. But my point is, if you have a reason, I will allow it. So
if it's a decent reason.
It's a decent reason. Yeah, not just because, they're next to each other in the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not about that.
Get more work done in less time.
Yeah, CrossFit.
Yeah, well, that's quite funny actually, because at that time I was very CrossFit influenced, as you'd remember, and so I was coming into the gym just like putting together wads, just whatever the fuck I could do that was ridiculous, I was doing it.
Yeah,
and and I was like mid-20s, so I was just getting away with everything.
Yeah, of course.
And Chad was just onto me. Like I remember he'd come out, like I'd be doing handstands, and he'd be like, "Why are you doing handstands? Why don't you just do overhead press?" And I'd be like, fuck, bro. Because, like I'm trying to explain myself to him when he doesn't want to hear it. He came up to me when I was eating lunch once and he's like, he commented on the paleo nature of my lunch because I was avoiding carbs, of course. And then he said, so I guess when you go to the toilet, you don't use toilet paper because that's what paleo guys did. And I was just like, hell, this guy.
Mate,
good one.
Yeah.
Got you there, young Joe.
Yeah. He was very much like a Steve Daly in that sense, like had that ability to poke and
So was he a PT there as well?
Yeah, he did like part-time there and part-time up at Fitty First, didn't he?
Yep.
It was interesting because I didn't get along with him, right? But we didn't need to. But T really respected him a lot.
Yeah.
And so there was that connection there, and I was like, okay, well, T obviously, rates this guy, and they had a friendship.
Well, and look, I mean, to be fair, like without me meeting him, wouldn't have met you.
Yep.
Wouldn't have met like Tullio Pisano, still at Fitness First.
Wow.
Alex, still at Fitness First, and some dudes that I've trained for years. So, I mean, look, when the big fella passed, it was I'd only had a Zoom chat with him, a few months earlier, maybe a month earlier, and things were tough for the big fellow. Like there was, but he was killing it over there. He was doing a great job. Like he had, some really interesting clients. He was living in Thailand at the time, and he was there because he'd had cancer and he'd made a decision in his life that that's where he was going to be. You know, he got his dad over there, bought him a house, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, so yeah.
Yeah. Sad ending.
Interesting.
But
sad ending, a real good man.
Yeah. So take me to this COVID piece. Something I wanted to ask you on. When we spoke, I remember we spoke at the beginning of the lockdown.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting thinking back to how our minds were racing when we were about to go into lockdown.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Yep.
Like, fucking hell, like my business, like, you know, what's going to happen to society kind of thing. And I remember talking to you and we were discussing how the commercial gyms
Yes.
are respectfully, are going to be, they're going to suffer some damages as a result of this.
Yeah.
And it was really based around them having huge membership bases, but not really having any brand loyalty.
Yeah.
Because people just go there because it's close
and no
it's cheap.
community.
Yeah, like no community aspect.
Yeah.
So, you know, which in contrast, a gym like ours, which has a strong community, that community really got our sort of gyms through. Yeah. What's been the fallout of that post-COVID? And I ask you because you're our man on the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
It's interesting, right? So I guess the best way to answer that is this. It was the best change for fitness that could have ever eventuated, right? Now, the reason that I say that is because it showed gyms like yours with community are the ones that really shone through that period. You know, like it showed, you know, like, I mean, I talk about, you know, little PT studios that I do a lot of work with that their clients kept paying. If they didn't lose their job, they kept paying the whole way through to support that particular, you know, trainer, group of trainers, whatever it was, right? Or family-owned business, if you will, you know? Whereas the commercial side of things made everyone, you know,
Cancel that shit.
Cancel that shit. That's straight out the window, you know. I during lockdown, I may have been dating someone who worked for one of the commercial gyms, and listening to what their gym was saying to her as a trainer was just nuts, you know. You know, we want you to keep working, but we're going to pay, you know, go PT in a park, or, you know, run a cycle class from your house. We'll send a bike to your house and just film it on your iPhone. And,
oh, wow.
And it was just, I sat there going,
to try and retain memberships.
Yeah, to try and, because all of a sudden I had to try and get that community vibe in 5 minutes flat. Now, what that did, and why I say it changed the face of fitness for better, is it was like we jumped forward 10 years in a week. Everyone learned how to get online. Everyone understood, okay, well, hang on a sec. If I'm not next to you, I can still PT you. I can do it via the iPhone. I can do it via an iPad, you know, whatever it happens to be. And it just meant all trainers could go, oh, hang on a sec. Well, let's now open things up. Let's have a different income stream. Let's look at what business and life balance might actually look like. You know, I had a group of mates that were probably actually training more people because they'd left the commercial gyms and they were like, oh, well, hang on a sec, you know, I've got a bit of spare income here because I'm now not going out every weekend and getting on the piss and, you know, going to restaurants and whatever else. So what can I do here? So all of a sudden they're jumping in and doing more PT or more, you know, online fitness. They're doing 2 classes a day in some cases because of boredom in a lot of people's lives. But the overall and overarching effect of what occurred because of that, and probably the one that I am the most happy to see, is we let go of some of the bullshit. Fitness is supposed to be fun, man. I don't care if you want to go for a run. I don't care whether you want to, you know, play badminton. I don't care what you want to do. Just do it your way. Don't let others dictate what your fitness journey looks like. You know, you guys talk about, you know, your pillars here, and I look at it and I think, what would the pillars be at Fitness First? Turn up, pay membership.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah, please don't break any of our shit so we don't have to buy anything more. Like that. That's probably honestly what they would be. So they had to get better, and they did.
Yeah, right.
And
so
they did.
you think it affected those gyms in a roundabout in a beneficial way too? Like
Absolutely.
they've adapted their operations.
This is the most negative thing in our lifetimes so far, I should say, unless there's some type of world war that kicks in the back end of my life. But that particular event was probably the most negative event in history so far. It turned friend against friend, family against family, around whether you were going to get the jab, weren't going to get the jab, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Yet fitness came out of it with, a gold star and a whole bunch of people learning to eat better, cook better, do better things. I was chatting away to a dietitian that I'm really good mates with, and she was running online cooking classes, right? And she was getting 70 to 80 people paying $10 a head
Jesus.
to watch her cook dinner.
Wow.
Yep. And it got to a point that she had an elite group that they would cook the same meal together while they were doing it, having a glass of wine. I'm sitting there going, in what fucking universe?
How cool is that?
Yeah. Like, honestly, that wouldn't have happened before, man.
It's a good point.
You
I did a fish taco night for the JB tribe.
I remember you did.
It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like 10 or 12 people there. Everyone's cooking fish tacos.
Yeah.
We're having a drink. Amazing. No one
Yeah.
paid me shit.
Yeah, oh. Mate, you should have talked to me before.
Send an invoice.
Yeah.
Services rendered
Back end.
during COVID.
Yes. So look, and
It's a great point though. Like it's
Yeah.
easy to take that stuff for granted that you're like, whatever
But
that
yours
you
was
could put on.
community. So here's the other part, right? Like, so there's the big difference, right? Like, let's just drop the financial side out. You did that because you have a fucking community that you wanted to service and look after.
Yeah.
Bravo. That's the point. She did it because she has 3 little kids that she needed to feed.
Also
Okay?
great. Yeah.
Also great, no problem. And no offense, like hers probably was, macronutrient, micronutrient balanced the shit house. Yours probably tasted the bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, we'll fry and fish and shit.
yeah.
It's good.
Sipping on a Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
In terms of talk to me about like that thing you mentioned earlier about PT managers and whatnot inside these gyms.
Yep.
So for a young coach listening, the way that I understand it used to work
Yep.
in a big gym like Fitness First was you would get a gig there, you're a young coach, there's a PT manager, and their job is their role is to look out for you.
Let's scale it back one step further, right? So when I was at Bond Street, I had what was called my development group. So this was the first of my foray into mentoring. So my development group, right, because when those new guys came in, they had a series of 16 modules that we used to teach on a weekly basis. So we would invite a young Paulie in with no PT qualification yet to learn about how to pick up leads on the gym floor. We would invite this group in. Some people wouldn't be available, some people
He'd
would.
be a student,
He'd be a student, right?
But partway through his course.
Wouldn't even have to have started. He could just be interested, right? Because then we would feed them into our pipeline of who was going to be our next trainer.
Right.
So we might know that if Paulie does these 16 modules, that'll give him enough interest to jump over to PT Academy, Fitness Australia, FIA, whatever the fuck, So we would feed them into that system, but it would give them a better starting point. And we were already doing that for free, right? That was part of our role as a PT manager. But within that group, we would have total novices that had never been, a PT. We would have people who were doing their PT course, and we do have these guys who were in the first 16 weeks of being a personal trainer within Fitness First. That would make up that group. Now, at points at Bond Street, I probably had 50 trainers working for me at that stage, well, for the business, but I was the PT manager for 50 trainers. My development group was probably somewhere in the vicinity of like 12 at points. So I'd have 3 that didn't have a PT qualification, 3 that were, had just started their course, 3 that were just about to finish their course, and 3 that were first 16 weeks in the biz.
Right.
So they were feeding off each other. They created their own little vibe. They create their own little Facebook group. They were chatting amongst themselves. The newbie would say to the guy who'd been there for 16 weeks, hey, I didn't understand what he meant about this. And mate, it was great, right? But that was that process that occurred. And, you know, you can look at some of the trainers that came out of that system. They walked into the gym like running. You know, that's
they had all the education
and information that they needed. And if they didn't, they knew they had a me, or depending on which of the facilities they were in, but they had a PT manager to go, hey, I'm struggling with leads. What do you got?
Yep.
Help me out here. And I'd be like, you go get 2 numbers off the gym floor. I'll give you 2, you know, great triple packs that are definitely looking for PT. Okay, sweet. Bang.
So does that role still exist?
It still exists in essence in the bigger gyms.
Yep.
It doesn't exist in some of the smaller.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been lucky enough, obviously, to work in a whole bunch of different fitness franchises. You know, I worked for Fitness First, Anytime. I've worked for Vision Personal Training. I've worked for, you know, a couple of others around, you know, that have either now defunct or have, you know, merged, changed, whatever, you know. And when you look at the differences of each system, what it comes down to is having people that care about what happens next. People that care about how does that actually, you know, affect that person's life. And, you know, I watched in the first, you know, when I first took on cluster PT roles, which meant my PT manager, when I was at Bond Street, I had Park, Pitt, George, and one other that I looked after. So every day I'd check in with those PT managers to see, have you done this? Have you done that? How's this going? How's that going? Right. So I was the manager above the manager, if that's the right way to word it. And you got an opportunity there to see, okay, hang on, he doesn't really give a shit about his people. So his development group is 2. And when he sits with those 2, he dictates to them, rather than saying, you know, hey, Paulie, run me through a 3-day program for a bodybuilder and tell me why you've chosen those exercises. You know, and that person would have to present to that group of 12, you know, and then that person would get, you know, critiqued and spoken to, and questions come up. And, yeah, it was just this great learning environment. And it really, really showed me that, you know, and like your coach's intensive program, very similar thought processes. It puts ideas out and allows you to flip them whichever way you want. I think that's important.
Yeah, right. So you're saying that there were gyms that like had those roles, but perhaps if it wasn't the right individual that was at the helm,
correct,
then there wasn't much development going on.
Yeah.
I mean, the impression for me is that when you step into a lot of those larger gyms, that you are kind of on your own a bit.
Yep.
Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can certainly choose poorly. You know, and I see, you know, let's use Bondi Platinum Fitness First as a really easy target. If you were the top of the pops there, you were earning above $5,000 a week. If you weren't, mate, you were thinking that going and still on steroids was probably your next option, because you were literally struggling to make rent.
What's rent in a gym like that?
I think now you'd be talking $450 a week.
Okay.
So, you know, it's not chump change, you know, but it's also not your own facility rent either, you know. So, and it's probably the biggest pipeline of human beings you can ever see. So, I quite regularly say that if you can't make it in a commercial gym, you're really going to struggle in a private facility. But the other side of that is that's probably because you've been given poor advice. Because if you're taught good marketing, if you're taught good strategy, if you're taught good people skills, you should really be able to make it anyway.
That's a really good point. I like that. I think of it almost like, you know, everyone tells you to go and get a job at McDonald's when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Just because you'll learn about systemization and just consistency, and
unreal.
It will teach you valuable lessons that you can apply later. Anyway, I got knocked back when I applied.
Hey, me too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got knocked back. I had a post.
Damn it.
A post like a knockback interview.
Yeah.
And the manager said to me, not all of our applicants are successful first time round. So if you'd like to apply again, better luck. I was like, eat a dick. I'm not coming back here.
Wow.
I'm Joe Worthington.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, crazy, eh?
I didn't get knocked back.
Didn't apply though,
Yeah.
did you?
What's that?
Did you apply?
Yeah.
Mickey D's?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was at Croydon.
Croydon Park. Wow. Okay.
Croydon.
Oh, you know that
on
one,
Para
Clint.
Road.
Yeah.
On Para Road there. And I think I was probably there for a total of a year, but I only worked like 6 months. And the last 6 months, I was just putting NA in the little black book. I just got the dick with it.
Yeah.
What NA? Like, not available.
Not
for
available.
those shifts?
Yeah.
Not
Not
available.
available.
I'm
Not
just not
available. Not rostered
Made
again.
yourself redundant.
Yeah, and then I just left.
Yeah, mad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
fuck, you
times.
got the gig and I
There we
didn't.
go.
Yeah, I was devoed.
Do you know what? I think so was I. I reckon I would have been 14, 9 months because I started working at Pizza Hut like 10 minutes later. So,
Take my services elsewhere.
yeah, damn you. Well, fuck you. And
Everyone should get a job at Macca's.
Yeah, look, and you know what? It's really interesting that you talk that we're using Macca's as our example in a fitness style podcast, and now I'm about to use Pizza Hut. But I think by 16 I was a duty manager, right? And I remember the responsibility that came with that, like I was locking up shifts and I'm thinking to myself, 16 years old and I'm counting thousands of dollars each night that, people are pumping through, pizza, restaurant. And I remember thinking to myself, what am I supposed to be learning here? And I remember what I was learning. And this came back to me years later. What I was learning is delegation, people skills, and conflict resolution. This person gets a ham and pineapple when they've ordered a Supreme, they blow up deluxe because they've been waiting 25 minutes for my little delivery guy to run it out to them. And, next thing you know, they get the wrong pizza, like I'm allergic to olives or whatever the, shit might be, But I just remember looking back at that and going, man, I wouldn't change that at all. Like, it's such a valuable experience, starting work at a 14, 9 months. But also just the underpinning philosophy of what that structure looked like. Here's a manual. Go through this, process this, fix this, do that, make a pizza this way, whatever it happened to be, right?
Checklists. Yeah.
Right? It probably meant that when I went into the real world of work, I was sitting there going, what do you mean? I get to decide when I work and how much I work, and so there was definitely a work ethic in place from that. Yeah, so interesting that we brought that up.
I think it's such a valuable time. I had jobs and worked from about the same age, and Joe did too, right?
Yeah.
And I just look back at them and thinking about PTs and stuff like that, and young ones that potentially haven't done jobs like that.
Yep.
And it's really tough if you just haven't gone to a job and had to turn up for, just turn up and be there for a certain amount of hours and, deal with this customer or do shit that you don't want to do. I think that, I always talk about like good coaches to me when you're trying to screen them. I love to see that they've worked in another industry and shown that they've done that for 3 years, stuff like that. Because there's just so much that you can learn, and the qualities that you learn from that just speaks volumes. And I can see it when someone hasn't. The differences.
It's really interesting you say that, because I think, I sat down with a group of young coaches. I went to a mate's gym and sat down and did a little business coaching and business development session for 6 of his trainers. And one of the first questions I asked is what are the 3 things you're most proud of in your business today, right? And this one particular girl who was, and look, this isn't meant as a dig. I'm just showing an example. This particular girl was from a very wealthy family, and she said, I know that I don't need this job. I can just fall back on my parents and walk away. But what I'm here for is to show myself that I could make it if I wanted to. And I remember looking at this girl going, you've got no idea how important that statement is, right? You've just said, I can do it. I can do it on my own if I have to. Now, mate, she's never going to have to. Like, you know, her dad knocked down the house in front of them so that they didn't have an interrupted view of the water. Like, he bought some, you know, $8.5 million palace you know, to knock down so that he had an unobstructed view of the ocean, right? There's no
decent.
There's no worry about.
That's what I would have done.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So, but I just remember when she said that, I was just like, you have the right attitude, right? And, you know, there's probably other people there that, you know, they probably skirted around the question a little bit, but I just look at things like working in another industry or having the integrity to just take the business by the horns and do what's required. You know? I think I've told you this story before, Joey. There was a young kid that I was mentoring. He walked into George Street Fitness First, and he said to me, he goes, I'm really going to upset some of the trainers here, but I've got an idea. And I was like, yeah, what's that? And he goes, I'm going to do $10 PT sessions. And I'm going to stand on, you enter George Street Fitness First via a lift. So the lift goes down, and he stood there, and he literally said, hey, Paulie, I'd like to offer you a $10 PT session. Shittest, like, it was literally the worst sales technique I've ever seen. But he worked on pure numbers. Paulie said, yes, right, done. What time? Thanks, mate. See you at that time tomorrow. Bang, next. Bang, bang, bang. He did not care how many no's he got. He literally, within the first 3 weeks of being there, was running 50 sessions a week at $10 a session. Now, 2 weeks later, he went from $10 a session to $20 a session. So guess what? All of a sudden, this kid has gone from $1,000 a week. And I was just sitting there going, fuck.
Decent,
right? But total attitude.
Like bad attitude?
No. He had the attitude that was, I'm sorry that I'm going to hurt these other people that are charging $100, $150 a session in some cases, right? But that was his, like, he was driven.
Yeah.
That pure focus. And it was beautiful to see.
Was his name Jeff Bezos?
No, but mate, it's like... It's
similar kind of vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and
he's going to win all the customers.
Yeah, he now owns four or five Anytime Fitness.
Oh, wow.
Queensland. Yeah.
Decent.
Yeah. So, you know, it's one of those ones, right? Like that you just, you know, don't knock it till you try it to start with. And, you know, the time that you're with someone as opposed to the time you're sitting down in a, you know, the back room of a PT studio where you're not training someone, you know, what did you get into it for? You know, like, so I think, you know, that attitude, that perspective and that understanding of what you actually want in life is a massive part of fitness.
Well, I think there's something in that which is, I'm sure, Paul, this will vibe with you because of your role now with all the coaches here at the gym. But it's very easy when you're a PT to not see what you're doing as a real business.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're like, yeah, I got some friends that I train and, yeah, I kind of usually make, you know, some money each week and it's pretty good kind of thing. But when someone asks you, how do you market what you do?
Yep.
Or what packages do you offer?
Yep.
Or do you have any sales training? Like, what does that look like?
Yep.
And, you know, most PTs like, no, I just, you know, I charge them this much cash per session, whatever. Whereas that guy, say with the $10 sessions, that's a business. That is a business. That is a strategy. It's like, I'm coming in and this is my epic marketing and sales strategy and I'm going to fucking grab all these people and then this is how I'm going to turn the dial up on that money.
And also, he over-delivered, right? Like, it's $10, right? People are going to, even if they're doing 5 sessions a week with Billy Blanks, they're still going to go.
Billy Blanks.
It's $10.
Tybo.
Yeah. Well played. There might have been
man.
a few people that missed that reference, but it's definitely something that us old timers certainly enjoy. But yeah, look, it's one of those things that you've got to remember that this is a business, and the business of fitness is changing.
Yeah.
And it could be
Professionalizing.
Professionalizing, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you see it when you step into those big gyms and you see these trainers that are making 5K a week.
Yeah.
And you're like, that person runs a business.
Oh, yeah.
But then you see the person that's kind of sort of always hanging out, always up for a chat,
Yeah.
got a couple sessions here and there.
Yeah, the Bondo Grassy Knoll PT, as I like to
Yeah,
call
and you're
them.
like,
Yep.
that's the person that'll probably only last for another 6 months
Yeah.
and then they're out.
Yeah. So when I first got into the industry, so 97 was my first PT gig at a place called Fitbods Burwood, which Paulie might know. So Fitbods Gym was a heavily Lebanese-influenced bodybuilding gym. At the time, it was run by two amazing people, two business partners, Sharon and Steve. Steve was an international aerobics, the old aerobics Oz style.
Uh-huh.
Steve was the man. He went on to
Bad ankles?
co-create Elixir.
Oh, yeah. Do you have
So-
bad ankles after all those years of aerobics?
Do you want to know what he had?
What?
The worst adductors you've ever seen, because they used to use this machine to do the splits where they'd sit there and they'd grind it outwards
Yeah.
to open them out and hold out there.
We got one here, don't we? Isn't
Yeah,
it
we do.
JT's machine?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we're pointing, we're doing, there's a bit of sign language happening
Yeah.
here in the background. JT's just walked in, so we're just...
So that
by
thing
it.
fucked him up because he used
Oh
it too
man,
much?
he just sat on it while we're doing meetings. I just remember sitting there going, Steve, brother, put the little boys away, right? But so and the reason that I bring that up is they did sales training with us in 1997,
Wow.
right? Now, did that help shape my fitness career? Oh my God, hell yeah. But the other part of this is that also created an avenue for me to see it as a business, to see that it wasn't just some dude rocking in, picking an exercise randomly and smashing the shit out of someone. Now, don't get me wrong, there are still PTs today that do that. And, they're probably doing okay because they stick to some simple mandates, they stick to some simple philosophies, they understand what they're trying to achieve, and they attract those clientele.
Yeah.
But the philosophy behind it is, the fitness business is changing, it's growing, it's turning into, I don't remember the change, but it's something like, in the last 10 years, fitness has doubled every year.
The size of the industry?
The size of the industry, the people in it, the money in it. So, yeah, look, I think you've got to look at it and think to yourself, what does that mean for the outsider? What does that mean for us? How do we turn that into a business that's sustainable? And obviously, one of the things that I'm here for today is there will be a collab with us, and there will be me joining the Jungle Alliance in force. And that will, potentially take a very different avenue to a lot of the other facilities that will fall under the Jungle Alliance. But, for me, that is about, your pillars and your streams of education and understanding. And that's where business goes, creating a community within businesses as well, rather than just a community within the actual gym.
Tell us about that. That was gonna be my next question. Tell us about this new venture of yours.
Yeah, look, it kind of came out of necessity.
You've been talking about it for a while now.
Oh, look, it's so funny, right? Like, I think the first time I ever talked about opening up a gym was, probably 2007, 2008. And then an opportunity's come up that has meant, a facility has become available. Which to me means, for the first time in a long time, I'll delve back into, not a full-time capacity, because obviously I've got some, some work with West Harbour Rugby Union. I've got, some education stuff there as well, and, a couple of interesting new challenges that potentially we'll talk about on future podcast. I won't drop a bomb today or anything like that, but I think me joining the Alliance is probably enough of a bomb for anyone who knows me anyway. And for me, I guess this opportunity is a small, semi-private style PT opportunity, whereby instead of doing the norm where classes become the thing, everyone will still be individually programmed by me, but there'll be 6 to 8 people in each particular session doing their own thing, but they'll all be on individual programs. So it means that a whole bunch more people are going to have access to, and I hate dropping the term, but elite strength and conditioning, rather than having to pay huge numbers. They're going to get a week for the same price as probably what a normal session is worth. So I'm pretty excited, and it's going to take a couple more weeks yet, but it's definitely a huge thing for me, and something that I'm really proud that's finally come to fruition after many years of saying that I would do it, I wouldn't do it, I would do it, I wouldn't do it. So yeah, the opportunity's right and the timing's right for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be exciting to obviously there's all the business stuff to get through, but to be able to just have a space that is yours.
Yeah.
Right. Versus like working out of another gym that's like 90% there, but maybe not quite how you want it.
Look, I mean, I guess what really started this is, I worked at Lift Performance Centre for a number of years, and Joey, you've obviously trained there. I don't know whether you ever stepped foot into Lift.
I've been there.
Yeah, but Cato Rutherford set up probably the best gym Sydney's ever seen. He put together the best coaches. He, hand selected, the cream of the crop, and when you look at it, Thatch was there, that was obviously here for many years. And look, he made some big mistakes, but it was without a doubt the best facility that I'd ever worked in. And interesting for me, people always ask me to compare that to 98 Riley Street and my time working there. And 98 Riley Street was a very class-orientated beast. Very, you must do this. This is how we do things, and these are our standards, and blah blah blah. Whereas Lift was, we had gymnastics in the front corner of the gym. We had, weightlifting out the back. We had power lifters. We had, at any given time, you could walk in and see 10 national athletes. Plus you had, the likes of Royden Dubois and people like that, training IFBB, pro models, in the back corner. So it was like, man, it was a mecca of what a gym should be. And it said there is no one right way or wrong way. You can do whatever the fuck you want. And I guess I'd never been able to find that since, and the day that they shut the doors of Lift, I think a little part of me was like, oh no, the fitness industry is dead, and then I was like, well, hang on, it doesn't have to be. I can recreate whatever I want. I can, join the Alliance. I can look into having an opportunity to go, hey, I can't offer this, but such and such within the Alliance can. I can do this for you, and vice versa. And whether it's, IP or education, or just a chance for, somebody to, jump online and go, hey guys, I'm having trouble with, securing, an insurance provider, blah, blah, blah. The Alliance will provide things like that. It almost takes me back to that first PTM role where I was helping people get their first ABN. I was helping people work through that. And, that community is something that I miss, that coaches community, and that people to bounce ideas off and sit there and just hear a different perspective. But the fitness industry for a long time got too focused on right and wrong. And now it's coming back the other way through COVID. And it's now focused heavily on what do you want, how do you want to do it, and let's just make everyone move better, feel better, and be happier.
Where is the gym?
So it's sort of in the back of Randwick.
Yep.
Like
Back of Randwick, like Bondi side or Coogee side?
Coogee side.
Yeah, near the shops?
Near the shops, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
So, so it's going to be, like I say, there's a couple of things left to fall into place. We've just got some DA stuff that must be fixed before that, the final signature hits the wall. But
how good's council?
Oh man, far out. I just couldn't believe, the guy that had owned the gym for that entire duration had no DA. So technically,
we encountered that.
Yeah, so weird, right? Like, because he doesn't realise that even though the landlord said, "Oh no, it's fine, no problem, you don't need a DA for it," that actually means that his insurance is completely null and void.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yep. Big deal.
Yeah, wow.
Big deal. Yeah. So if he'd stepped them out onto the footpath to train them, he would have been covered. But because he was within a facility that had no DA approval, big drum.
Exposed.
Yeah.
We should give some clarity around, because this is kind of the first we've mentioned of the Alliance for a while. And I think it's a cool opportunity to kind of mention.
Yeah, cool.
So I think what would stand out to folks is like, oh, okay, like Clint's an S&C guy primarily, and Jungle Brothers, the Jungle Alliance is this movement piece.
Yeah.
And I think what really excites us about the potential of the Alliance is that it's not about connecting people of the same cloth necessarily.
Yeah.
It's not saying, hey, you're a movement gym like us,
Yep.
join this thing that we're doing.
Yep.
It's really about finding individuals, and this is coaches or gyms, who share the same values.
Yeah.
And I was chatting with Paul about it yesterday, and we were talking about another sort of training group that we know in Sydney, and someone that we've known for a while. And Paul said, "Oh, are they? What about them?" And I said, "You know what, man? Like, no, they're not. They're not for the Alliance." And what it comes down to for me is, would I feel confident sending somebody to you?
Yes.
And unequivocally, yes, I would feel confident to do so. And that really
And you have.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Like, we've worked together for years,
Yeah.
right? And whether it's for education or training or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to, is like, if the gym or the organization speaks to a standard that we wish to uphold, then they can be a part of it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter if you're doing the same shit. What it matters is that you're doing it as well as you can.
Yes.
And then obviously the other side of that is parts of what you do are hyper relevant to parts of what we do.
Yeah, you bet.
And vice versa.
Yeah, you bet.
And there will be other gyms that are in the Alliance that will be, you know what, I need some help with some barbell strength training.
Yep.
Oh, we got a guy, Clint, he's your man. Like,
Yep.
it's not all about like this one set of things that we're doing here at
Yeah.
Jungle Brothers. And I think we've had to figure that out in our thinking of the Alliance. Like, are we dictating what allies do?
Yes.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
We want to influence what they do.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure they have access to the best information. But that also means that the inputs or the information that's coming in can be different to what we believe.
Yeah.
And that is how the organization as a whole will evolve. And it means then that for the person who trains in those gyms, you could have a different experience here to your gym in Randwick, to T's gym in Ballina, to Az in Jungle Dublin. And that's awesome.
Yep.
Like, it's unique.
Yep. And look, I think the other part of that is, and let's be really truthful here. I've said it through the whole period that there is no one size fits all. Like, you can do whatever you want. Okay? Do I really want to do handstands? Not really, guys. It's not for me. Like, I get up there, I have a laugh, and I'm done. Like, that's it for me, right? Got it?
Got the photo?
He's got the photo done. Like, somebody quickly hold my legs, snap the photo, and I'm going to Photoshop you the fuck out of it, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that, like, one of the most exciting pieces when Joey first sort of broached this idea with me was that he was like, chatting to T, and they're about to put in a climbing wall, and does it really fit? Well, yeah, it does, because it's moving. So why not? And it's like, of course it fits, right? Like, I want to be able to, one day take my kids and run up a climbing wall or do whatever it is. So if I do too much of one element, I lose the mobility side. If I do too much of one other side of things, I lose the strength side of things. So for me, when I turn around and interesting, as I was about to say what I'm about to say, I just looked up to my right and there's the poster of the fight night, which was obviously bought, you guys supported Rise Foundation, which I'm obviously heavily part of. And you just look at the things that we've kind of done together over the years, and everything that we have done may not necessarily be purely based within the facility, but mental health. We started our 24-hour charity walk here. So we started our fitness journey within a commercial facility. Like there's so many things and so many elements that you can learn a little bit from someone else, and you can draw on that and you can use that to your advantage. So I think, the reason that the decision was super easy for me was because the second you said it, I smiled. The second you said it, I got excited. And I was like, oh man, it'll be so cool to be able to bounce this idea off this person. It'll be so cool to be able to teach this person this. It'll be so cool to be able to help this person grow in this way. Mate, it was a no-brainer for me. And, also just that, the things that I don't love doing. The CRM side of things, sometimes I get the shits with the social media stuff. I get the shits with the marketing side of things. There's so many things there that, I will draw from you guys on, and be, not just an ambassador for the brand, but an ambassador for the product of fitness.
It's fucking exciting, man.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm you've always been a mentor of sorts for me and a wealth of knowledge for us. And I'm excited to have you in the Alliance community and to be that person there.
Yeah.
Because it's predominantly it's going to be less experienced individuals coming in, but for them to have access to...
It would be hard to not be less experienced. I'm fucking ancient.
Great point. But, for an up-and-coming gym owner to have access to us,
yeah,
and to all of those people that are going to be in there,
yeah,
like, what an awesome fucking opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, it might come down to, let's say, Az is obviously opening, Jungle Dublin, right? Az is sitting there and, some kid that comes in that plays Gaelic football walks in, and Az is like, well, I don't really know what the program should look like. What are the biomechanics of the sport? Da-da-da-da-da. Az jumps on, Clint, question, da-da-da-da-da. And I'll be like, mate, I'm not doing it for you. I want you to write the damn program, send it to me, I'll critique the shit out of it, and then ask you a whole bunch of questions. Mate, that's what education and growth is about.
That's cool.
That's exciting.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Do you have any plugging for the gym? Like,
not yet. I'll leave that for the minute until I get that right where I want it to be.
Yep.
Because if Site A doesn't work with a DA, I may or not have accidentally looked at a slightly bigger site, which, that's I'm just going to, I'll leave it at that and just laugh at myself in essence.
Fair call. Well, we'll update the crew once that's open.
Yeah.
What about you personally, if anyone want to get in touch, if people want to know about the courses you got?
Yep. Look, I think Instagram is my fastest reply mechanism. Clint_Hill Strength. I go through phases. I'll be really blunt, where I think I have to post, so therefore I punch out 10 things in a row, and then the next phase I don't touch the damn thing for a month. But I think generally, for me, that's a really simple showcase of who I train, what I'm about, what I care about. And there's no bullshit there either. I absolutely love a beer. I don't shy away from the realities of life. There are, parts of me that are very, very normal, but there are also parts of me that are, so devoted to what I do in this realm, that, I've obviously, pushed myself through 2 different master's degrees to get to where I am because of my passion for the industry. So I believe heavily in that formal education, but I also believe heavily in on the job.
Mate, awesome stuff. Good to have you in today, bro.
Mate, thank you both very much for having me, obviously, and the whole Jungle Brothers family, and the future Jungle Alliance.
Mate, the family grows.
It grows.
Guys, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend. And if you are interested to know about our upcoming Coaches Intensive, you can find more information at junglealliance.com. That course is on the 18th and 19th of this month. So if you are interested, get onto the website, chuck in the code JB Podcast, and you'll get 20% off your enrollment. I'll be facilitating that. Clint will be there on day 2, not to be missed. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.